Hey guys, I hope you're doing well. So this video isn't going to be for everyone, but I do hope it helps some people out there. If you've been following me for a while, you might know this story of my relationship past, but for those of you who don't, I was engaged quite a few years ago. I documented a lot of that relationship on this YouTube channel because it was my life and I filmed my life, and so it was very much a part of this. So some of you guys might remember that. You might remember us getting engaged and the proposal video and the wedding planning videos that followed. You might then have also seen that we broke up 5 months before our wedding, and I then had to go through the process of not only getting over a breakup to a guy that I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with, but also cancelling a wedding, telling all of you guys, like telling an audience who had followed our journey from like first date to getting engaged. It was a really big turning point in my life, as you can imagine. So today I wanted to share my experiences and talk to you guys about how I cancelled my wedding, how I followed those steps, and kind of like the practical points of how to cancel a wedding, but also some positive affirmations to let you know that you can be happy after what for most people will be the worst thing to go through. You can be happy again. I'm going to take my slippers off and get comfy for this. I have written a blog post on this, and I've also recorded a podcast with Cosmopolitan about this. I'll leave a link to both of those down below, but I wanted to film it in video format because that's how a lot of you guys watch content, and I know that this also isn't something that is spoken about very often. Like normally my timeline on Instagram and YouTube and Twitter is full of engagements and proposals and weddings and wedding planning, and unfortunately for a lot of us it isn't a fairy tale like that. So yeah, if you have been in this situation, then I do hope you find this informative and inspiring. Okay, so the practical points, I've got 5 tips on how to cancel a wedding. The first is to give it time. I gave it a month between breaking up with my ex to starting the process of cancelling the wedding, because I was, as you can imagine, really heartbroken. My whole world had just tipped upside down, and I was living with my ex. We had an apartment together that we were renting. It was 6 months before the wedding date, and so obviously everything was booked, and I needed time to process it. I needed time to kind of work things out in my head and get used to the idea. So I was very lucky that I was able to give it a month between it happening and like emailing the vendors. I needed that month in order to kind of process my thoughts and understand what was happening. And obviously on the day that we broke up, I knew there was no going back. I knew that was it. It wasn't a case of me waiting another month to see if we could make it work, because I knew just deep down that this was something I had to do, and I couldn't marry this guy. Kind of writing it down physically or saying it out loud was really too much to even comprehend. So I was very lucky to be able to give it a month beforehand to kind of gather my thoughts and come to terms with it, I guess, even though that was very, very difficult. Secondly, obviously it is very important that you cancel all of your wedding vendors. You cancel the venue if you've got that far in your wedding planning. Maybe you haven't, that's great, because it's one less stress. But as most of the wedding planning was down to me, like I was pretty much heading it all up, cancelling it all was down to me too, which doesn't really seem very fair, but that was what happened. So it was a case of emailing my venue, the church, photographer, pretty much everything we had booked, and I didn't really want to pick up the phone and do it over the phone, as you can imagine, because I would have just broken down. I would have been a crying mess. They wouldn't have been able to understand me. And so I drafted an email out with my mum. I could potentially put that email in the description box if you guys would want to see kind of like the blanket brief example, in case you guys don't know quite how to phrase it yourself. But yeah, I sat down with my mum and we wrote an email that I could kind of tweak to each individual vendor, basically explaining the situation and how heartbroken I was, and that we wouldn't need their services anymore. I would like to put a little tip in here to say, please don't worry or get embarrassed about this. Like, the probability is your vendors will have seen this quite a few times already. You're not the first, and so don't be embarrassed or ashamed of your situation and that you couldn't make it work, because sometimes unfortunately it just doesn't work and two people aren't as compatible as you originally think. In my case, all of my vendors pretty much emailed back and expressed their condolences, and is that the right word? I don't know. They expressed their sadness for me, and it was really lovely to see. It was nice to know that I wasn't the first to go through it and that they were there if I needed anything. Which leads me on to number 3. You can try and get some of your deposits back. In my case, I didn't get anything back. The venue did say that if I was to book my wedding there in the future, then they could carry my deposit forward, but obviously I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't really like the idea of getting married there again. It was somewhere that I'd chosen out with him and I had imagined it with him, and it kind of just feels tainted now. Lost a lot of money, I think around £10,000 in deposits. Quite a few of the money was still left to pay kind of closer to the time, and I should say that in that email that I sent out cancelling all the vendors, I did add a sentence in there about if there was any chance, because obviously I'm going to be struggling a little bit now, having lost all that money and living arrangements having changed. It's worth doing just in case you're able to. If it's quite far in advance, they might be able to refund you because they could fill the date up. My venue did also say that if they had another date booking on our date, then I would get my money back, but obviously that didn't happen either. Number 4, again, not all of you might experience this, but about 4 months after we broke up, I still had to go and pick up my wedding dress, which at the time I was like, yeah, I'm fine with this. Like, I feel much better about it now. I've had 4 months to kind of process it. I know it's not going ahead. But when it came to picking up the dress, it was a really weird experience. I like to think I'm quite a strong person, and I think I thought that, but when I went and picked up the dress, it was really difficult. With my mum, as usual, she was an absolute rock for me throughout that kind of whole time and breakup, really supportive. She came with me, and I still had a little bit of money to pay towards the dress because at that point I'd only paid a deposit. Obviously I couldn't get that back because they'd altered it to my height. I went in the shop and I saw another girl trying on a wedding dress, and that was when it kind of hit me that that wasn't going to be me, and I didn't know if that would ever be me again and how long it would take for that to happen for me again. They showed me the dress, and yeah, I was sad. Just seeing this beautiful dress, which I had spent so long choosing and deciding on. It was really hard for me to find one that I liked. To see it and know that I would never really wear it in that sense, that was difficult, but I got through it and it made me stronger, and I still got it downstairs in a storage room, in a suitcase locked away. I've tried it on once, had a little bit of a like dance around my living room in it. Yeah, it's kind of weird. It definitely feels tainted. I'm definitely not going to wear it if I get married again. I would quite like to do some sort of photo shoot in it, maybe before I sell it, because that is what I'm going to end up doing with it. But yeah, that was difficult, but I got through it. Another thing you might not consider when you cancel a wedding and break up with someone is that that day, your wedding day, will come and go. So I think for me it was really important to have something on that day that would completely take my mind off what I would have been doing, and instead made me feel really happy and hopeful for the future. So my wedding day was June the 2nd, 2017. So it was my 3-year anti-wedding day last week. That day I went away on holiday with my family. My family took me to Romania. We spent a week traveling around Transylvania. I've always been obsessed with vampires. I love kind of the whole history of Vlad the Impaler and Dracula and Bram Stoker, and my parents knew that, so they took me away to Romania, and we literally did a Dracula tour for a week, which was incredible. It completely took my mind off it. I'm not gonna lie, on the day I was really snappy. I was a bit irritable, a little bit sensitive, a little bit bitey more than usual. It was just really important to spend that day with people that I really loved and to try and forget about what I would have been doing if things had have been a bit different. The following year I went on a night out with my best friends and we had an anti-wedding day, which was so much fun. And kind of every year I try to do something that is a little bit more special, or a night out or a meal, just to kind of celebrate the fact that I didn't marry someone that I wasn't happy with and didn't make me happy. Like, try and think of it more as a celebration, something to be really thankful for, because I'd rather that than have got married and got divorced 4 months later. I wanted to mention this again, this might not happen to all of you, but I actually had to visit my wedding venue for a party 2 months after what would have been my wedding day. My work had a big celebration and a big party there, and when they told me, I was really upset. They didn't realise that it was my venue. I'd kept that quite quiet. It was hard knowing that I was going to have to go back. I tried to look at it in a positive light. I was like, right, I'm going to this venue that I absolutely love. I'm going to try and make new memories there. I'm going to make new memories with my friends. Yes, it was difficult. Yes, I got a bit emotional, but I just downed my sorrows with a little bit of booze and made new memories. And yeah, I can now look back at that and think of those good times rather than what would have been. I should also point out here that you're obviously going to have to tell your friends and family that your wedding is cancelled at some point. Do that in your own time. If they are caring and love you and meant to be in your life, they will obviously be nothing but supportive for you. And it's really nice to have those people rally around you in a time that you might not want it, but will actually need that support. So don't be embarrassed about telling your friends and family. They will probably all know people that have gone through this before. In my case, I kind of think I told my main group of friends. I told obviously my family, who spread the word around, so I didn't have to like admit it to everyone. And then I put up a video announcing that we'd broken up to all of you guys as well, which has now been taken down because it's a part of my life that doesn't need to be up on the internet anymore. I am now so much happier 3 years on. My life is 100 times more positive, more fulfilled. I'm more content. I've met an amazing partner who is like, I do feel like I've manifested him from my wildest dreams, and I think that should give you all hope that even though at the time you're going to be very heartbroken and worrying a lot about the future and worrying a lot about the past, if you could have changed things or if you could have fixed them or if things have been different, don't focus on that. Focus on each day, getting through each day, and I promise you will have good things to come, because I have, and I hope that gives you hope. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful. If you have any extra tips, leave them down in the comments. I will leave everything I mentioned in the description box. I love you guys lots. Mwah!